Solving by factoring when a is not 1. Okay, so this is the same idea as what we just did in task 3. However, now we're using the diamond and the box method. So let's check out the example problem. 3x squared minus 4x plus 1 equals 0. Step 1, we want to factor the quadratic using the diamond and the box method, which is from task 2. Okay, so remember on the top of the diamond, we do a times c, and we get 3 times 1, which is 3. And our b value is this negative 4. Alright, so we want two numbers that multiply to 3, add to negative 4. We find that it is negative 1 and negative 3. Alright, now it's time to fill in the box. 3x squared goes up here. 1 goes down here. What do we fill in the other two slots with? Well, negative 1x and negative 3x. And now we work up and down. What do these both have in common? They both have 3x in common. What do these both have in common? They both have negative 1. If we look at our diamond cheat sheet, that has to be a negative 1. We look at these two, 3x squared and negative 1x. They both have 1x in common. And then we look at negative 3x and 1. We know it has to be a negative because of our diamond cheat sheet, or our box cheat sheet, sorry. And we get negative 1. So our final answer in factored form is 3x minus 1, x minus 1. Now remember, the thing that makes these problems different is they equal 0. Okay, so that is what tells us we need to solve, and how we solve is we use the zero product property. Okay, and that, remember, that just means that you take each part, these are our two parts here, and separately set them equal to 0. So we do 3x minus 1 equals 0, x minus 1 equals 0, and from here we just solve for x. So on the left here, I'm going to add 1 to both sides. Cancels, and we get 3x equals 1. How do I get the x by itself? Well, I have to divide by 3 both sides. So I get x equals 1/3. That's one of my answers. And then over here, we're going to add 1 to both sides. And I just get x equals 1. So my two answers are x equals 1/3 and x equals 1. Okay, let's look at one more example problem. Now, how is this example different than the first one we did? Well, the first one we did, it equaled 0. In this problem, it equals 2. That's an issue because before we can do diamond or box, we need the quadratic to equal 0. Okay, so how can we get this to equal 0? Well, we can move that 2 over to the other side by subtracting 2 from both sides. So then we would have 2x squared plus 3x minus 2 equals 0. And that's what we want, okay? So we can go ahead and do diamond and box. So diamond, we want to take 2 times negative 2. We get negative 4. And on the bottom here, we get 3. We want two numbers that multiply to negative 4, add to 3. And so we get 4 and negative 1. From here, we're ready to go to the box method, right? So what is always going in the upper left-hand corner? That's this 2x squared here. What goes in the bottom right? That's the negative 2. And then what fills the two other blanks? We take negative 1x and 4x from the diamond. Now we want to work up and down to find the outsides of the box. What do 2x squared and 4x have in common? Well, they both have 2x in common. What do negative 1x and negative 2 have in common? Well, we know it has to be a negative, and they both have 1 in common. 2x squared and negative 1x, they both have an x. And lastly, 4x and negative 2, they both have 2 in common. So now we're going to write out our factored form. So 2x minus 1 and x plus 2. Remember, it equals 0, and that is the reason why we do the zero product property. So take each part, and separately, let's set them equal to 0. So 2x plus 1, or 2x minus 1 equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0, and let's separately solve them. So I'm going to draw my line. I'm going to add 1 to both sides. They cancel here. I'm left with 2x equals 1. And then we want to divide both sides by 2 to get x by itself. So I get x equals 1/2. Can I get a fraction as an answer? Yes, you can. Okay. And then over here on the right side, I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides to get x equal to negative 2. So my two answers are x equals 1/2, x equals negative 2. Easy as that. So I also want to talk about what if example 2 would have looked like this. Now remember, we want to get the right side equal to 0. Okay? So I need to move this negative 3x and the 2. So I'm going to add 3x to both sides. And I would get 2x squared plus 3x equals 2, right? Because those cancel. And then I'm going to move the 2 over as well, which is what we did in that last problem. So I get 2x squared plus 3x minus 2 equal to 0. And that's what we wanted. Okay? And notice I didn't combine anything because there were no like terms. Okay? From here, you could do the diamond and the box and solve. What if it looked like this? So draw your line down the equal sign. Remember, we want this side equal to 0. Okay, so what would I have to do? Well, I have to subtract 1 from both sides. Cancels over here. And the difference between this problem is we can combine these like terms, right? Negative 1 minus 1. We can merge those together and get negative 2. And then that equals 0, which gives us the go-ahead to do the diamond and the box and solve.